with help from all of you, will continue to make a difference. During our canvassing trips, those of us from blue states went to work with and be guided by our members on the ground in places like Georgia and North Carolina. It was so rewarding to get out the vote with CGB members and activists from these states. And now I want to turn it over to Candace Smith, Harvard Law School class of '93, and Faulkner Fox, class of '85, both kick-ass activists who are truly practicing democracy, to share some stories from the campaign trail. And I hope when you hear what they say, you can imagine yourselves joining them in this important work. Candace?
Thanks, Janet. I want to just say hello and welcome and thank you to everyone who's here. We all believe that I think by turning the country blue, that we can definitely create a better world. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to do in Georgia. We did it in 2020, and we continue to work to try to make to keep those gains. You see it here with us with our runoff and all of the turnout. But voting in Georgia is really hard. I've been active with voter protection in Georgia with the Democratic Party of Georgia for about 5 years. I have been voting in Georgia since I was 18, so this is very personal to me. I've done a little bit of everything. I've been a foot soldier, I've been a captain, I've been everything in between. But regardless of my role, what my aim is to help voters in Georgia. And like I said, voting in Georgia is hard. They don't make it easy. And voter suppression is an art form here. By way of example, and by no means limitation, the new voting law, SB 202, which was enacted in direct response to the 2020 results, made significant changes in absentee balloting. Since its enactment, there's been an over 80% decline in people who vote by mail. This is one of the reasons that you see so many people standing in line this week. There are people who might have voted by mail, but who just don't do it anymore. But rather than focusing on all of the challenges we have, of which we have many, I want to tell you a good story of a good voter outcome about a woman I will call Patricia. In Georgia, you have to vote in your particular precinct before 5 o'clock, or your vote is not going to count. And that's important to the story because before SB 202, if you couldn't go to your precinct and you were somewhere in your county, you could vote anywhere in the county. There was no problem. You could vote for everything that was on the county's ballot. And this hurts voters a lot in Georgia. There's been a change because where you vote early may not be where you vote on election day. Where you voted in the primary may not be where you vote in the general. Where you vote in the primary runoff may not be where you vote in the general runoff. So there's constant confusion about where you're supposed to be, and voters oftentimes, for very good faith reasons, show up in the wrong place. And my voter, Patricia, when she called with her problem, explained that her polling place was across town and she didn't have transportation to get there. She was a fairly recent voter. She said to me, with what had to be a mix of exasperation and just utter frustration, "This is only my second time voting. I'm just so discouraged." And, you know, as a person who does voter protection, my responsibility is I got to try. I got to make it happen for her. So what I said to her is, "You've got this. We will figure this out." I looked at the clock. It was 4:55. And I asked her if she could stick around for 10 more minutes. And she said yes. And I explained to her that while the new rules required that she'd go to her precinct before 5 o'clock, it was about to be 5 o'clock. And she can vote anywhere in the county after 5. So all she needed to do is wait for a few minutes. So I told her at 5:05, just watch right back in and you can go vote. And she was grateful and she said she would. And I told her, they make these rules this way to make it hard. They change the rules so that you'll get tired. But I will not let those rules keep you from voting. and she thanked me. And in her thank you, I could hear the tension leave her body. And so for people like her, this work is important because it's not just a voter. There are tens of thousands of voters just like her out there. Thanks.
Thanks, Candace. Faulkner.
Hey, I'm coming to you from just north of Georgia, from Durham, North Carolina. I'm really glad to be here. You might hear I have a little bit of a cold, which I was saying is a good thing about Zoom. I'm not breathing on any of y'all, so it's not COVID. I just have a little bit of a cold. What I want to talk about is what it was like just a month ago to have an infusion of people from Crimson Goes Blue come into Durham and help us out. We didn't have any help in 2020 because, as y'all remember, it was the middle of a pandemic and no one was going anywhere. Actually, I take that back. We had tons of help from all over, virtual help, but we didn't have anybody on the ground helping us. And what I want to say is I've lived in North Carolina for 20 years. I'm from a small town in Virginia. My mother was an anti-racism activist before that was even a thing. She wouldn't have called herself that, but that's what she was in the 70s. So I've kind of grown up doing activism. And when you're in a swing state, you don't care any more than anyone else. You're just in the hot seat. Like you got to do it. And so it's such a relief when people come to help and to support, especially when they respect what's going on the ground and they want to listen to us and help with what we've already been doing. So what happened around Halloween, so just a month ago, is a bunch of great activists from Crimson Goes Blue came to Durham and they helped with the things we had going. One of the things we had going was what we called the bus station canvas. In Durham, unlike in Boston or New York, people are riding the bus because they don't have a car. And just as what Candace was explaining in Georgia, similar things in North Carolina, it's made difficult to vote on purpose. And so people's precincts are far away. The polling places change from one election to another, and it's difficult for people to get where they need to go. So we hang out at the bus station and encourage people, look things up, tell them where their polling place is, tell them where the early vote sites are if it's during early vote, and we actually drive people there. So we're like, let's go right now if you want to go. So Crimson Goes Blue members helped us with that in the bus station. And then nobody really believed this, but I explained to people that at my house, we get 1,500 trick-or-treaters. So everyone was like, okay, well, that sounds like fun. And I'm like, yeah, but all those kids have parents and Halloween is during early vote. So guess what? This is a canvassing opportunity for us. We're going to hand out information about early voting to all the parents while the kids are getting candy. So we did that as well. And then on election day, I went to an early vote site where I met someone else from Harvard. I didn't know she was from Harvard, but I recruited her to Crimson Goes Blue. And we redirected voters who were coming to the Duke early vote site to vote on election day. And this is just exactly what Candace was speaking of in Georgia. Why would that not be a voting site on election day? Why would that not be a precinct? To confuse people, to make it more difficult. So there were Eileen and I looking up on our phones and telling people where their precinct was that they needed to go to. So those are just three of the things that we were doing this year. And people from Crimson Goes Blue came right in and helped out with all of that stuff. And it was awesome to have them. And we can't wait to see you guys back in 2024. Because
we'll be back. We'll be back, Faulkner.